Anna had always considered her life with Jake to be predictable, comfortable, and above all secure. They had been married for 10 years, and though their relationship wasn't without its ups and downs, it was built on trust. Jake worked as an accountant, a stable job that kept him busy but never seemed to interfere with their family life. Anna, a stay-at-home mom, had everything she needed: a loving husband, 2 healthy children, and a home they had worked hard to make their own. Life felt like it had settled into a rhythm, a peaceful routine that didn't leave much room for surprises. But that afternoon, everything changed. Anna had been folding laundry when she noticed Jake's coat hanging carelessly on the hallway hook. It was unusual for him to leave his coat there. He typically took it straight to the closet or hung it up neatly. Curious, she decided to check the pockets, perhaps to find a forgotten receipt or a stray piece of paper. As her hands reached into the deep pocket, she felt something small and unusual. She pulled it out, expecting a piece of trash or something trivial. Instead, she found a small, wrapped condom. At first, Anna simply stared at it, her mind racing to make sense of what she had just discovered. She couldn't believe what she was holding in her hand. A condom? Jake had always been careful, but this was something entirely different. He had never been the type to carry such things around, and certainly not in his coat pocket. Her first instinct was to dismiss it. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe he had picked it up by accident or it belonged to someone else. But deep down, something didn't sit right with her. She tried to push the thought aside, telling herself that it was just a mistake. But as the minutes passed, that nagging feeling began to grow. The more she thought about it, the more questions she had. Had Jake been seeing someone else? Had she missed something all along? The perfect image she had of their life together was beginning to feel like an illusion. She spent the next few moments frozen, still holding the condom, trying to make sense of it all. Her heart raced. She felt both angry and confused, unable to understand how or why this had happened. How could Jake, the man she trusted, do something like this? Was it just a mistake? Was she overthinking it? Anna's mind became a whirlwind of questions, each one feeding into the next, spiraling out of control. For the rest of the afternoon, Anna couldn't focus on anything else. Her thoughts kept returning to the discovery in the coat pocket. She wanted to confront Jake immediately, but she knew she couldn't. She needed to gather more information. She couldn't just accuse him without being certain, without proof. The uncertainty gnawed at her, making it impossible to think clearly. Anna knew she had to find out more, but the thought of facing Jake with such a heavy accusation felt unbearable. She could already imagine the excuses he would make, the lies he would tell to cover up whatever was really happening. So instead of confronting him right away, Anna made a decision. She would take a step back, observe, and see if there was more to the story. Her gut told her there was, and she couldn't ignore it. What she had found in that pocket wasn't just a condom. It was the start of a much darker truth she was about to uncover. In the days following her discovery, Anna found herself constantly on edge, unable to shake the nagging suspicion that her life with Jake wasn't what she had believed it to be. The moment she had found the condom, a switch had flipped inside her. The calm, predictable life she thought she had been living suddenly felt fragile, like a glass vase teetering on the edge of a shelf. She knew she couldn't ignore it, not now. She had to know the truth. Anna's investigation began subtly. She didn't want to alert Jake to her suspicions just yet, so she made a conscious effort to act normal, to not let him sense that anything was amiss. She kept her emotions in check, but her mind was always racing. She watched him more closely than she ever had before, searching for clues in his behavior. There were subtle changes, things she hadn't noticed before but now seemed glaringly obvious. Jake was distant, more so than usual. He'd started working late more often, and when he came home, his mood seemed off, like he was distracted by something. He would glance at his phone and quickly put it away whenever Anna walked into the room, a behavior that felt odd given their usual openness with one another. One evening, after dinner, Jake had received a text message, and Anna noticed the way he stiffened when the notification chimed. It was nothing major, just a slight pause in his usual movements, but it struck her as odd. He immediately picked up the phone and disappeared into the other room to answer it, something he hadn't done before. Normally, they would share these moments, laughing over jokes or discussing their day. But now, there was this new distance between them. Anna's heart sank as she realized how much she had overlooked before. The next day, while Jake was at work, Anna decided to take a deeper look into his phone. She had no concrete evidence to prove her suspicions, but she knew she needed to find out more. She hesitated for a moment, her hands trembling as she picked up his phone, but she knew this was her only chance. She unlocked the phone with a passcode he had never hidden from her, and immediately her eyes landed on the message thread between Jake and a woman named Emily. The messages were casual at first, but the longer she scrolled, the more her heart sank. They were flirtatious, teasing, and filled with inside jokes that Anna had never heard before. As she continued to read, it became clear that their relationship wasn't just friendly. There was something more. They spoke to each other in a way that only two people who shared an intimate connection could. Jake had referred to Emily with affectionate terms, ones he had never used for Anna. As the messages grew more suggestive, Anna's stomach twisted in knots. This was no innocent friendship. It was an affair, and it had been going on for months. Anna couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her mind reeled with shock, disbelief, and anger. She scrolled back, looking for any sign of when it had all started. It was clear that Emily wasn't just some recent acquaintance. Jake and this woman had been in each other's lives for far longer than Anna could have ever imagined. There were mentions of secret meetings, late-night conversations, and even planned weekend trips that Anna never knew about. Her heart raced as she looked through the entire thread, but she couldn't bring herself to stop. The truth was right there, written in black and white. She felt as though the floor had been ripped out from under her and she was falling into an abyss she never expected. Jake, the man she had trusted with everything, had been hiding this from her for months. The thought of Emily, the nurse who had always been so kind and helpful whenever she'd come over, made Anna feel sick. This wasn't just about a condom anymore, it was about the betrayal of everything Anna had thought was true. The days following Anna's discovery felt like a blur. Each moment was filled with a gnawing sense of disbelief, a deep pain that seemed to take root in her chest. She couldn't stop replaying the messages she had found, the intimate words Jake had shared with Emily. How had it come to this? How had she missed the signs? In her heart, Anna knew that she couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. The trust that had once been the foundation of their relationship was gone, replaced by suspicion and heartache. For the next few days, Anna was consumed with the need for answers. She couldn't keep living in a world of half-truths. She needed to know the full extent of what had been going on behind her back, even if it meant facing the painful truth. Jake had been so careful, so smooth in his deception. She wondered how much she had truly seen of him. Had he really been the man she thought he was, or was this secret life always lurking just beneath the surface? Anna's suspicions only deepened as she began to notice even more signs of Jake's infidelity. He was still working late, and when he did come home, his behavior was even more distant. It was as though he was actively trying to hide something. There was a coldness in his interactions with her. No warmth, no affection, just the bare minimum required to keep things running smoothly. When Anna tried to ask him about his day, about the work he had been doing, he would brush her off, offering vague, non-committal responses. There was no longer the openness she had once enjoyed with him. But it wasn't just Jake's behavior that changed. It was his entire demeanor. He began avoiding eye contact. His conversations were short and evasive, and there was a noticeable tension in the way he held himself when they were together. Anna had always prided herself on being intuitive, on being able to read people well, but with Jake, everything felt like a lie now. She knew that something was off, but the full extent of his betrayal was too much to process. In a twisted way, Anna found herself becoming more observant, more meticulous. She paid closer attention to everything Jake did, trying to catch him in the act, hoping that somehow he might slip up and reveal more. And then, one evening, it happened. As Jake prepared to leave for another one of his late-night meetings, Anna saw a familiar sight, the phone in his hand. The same phone she had unlocked just days before. He was distracted, typing a quick message. But for the first time in days, he didn't immediately hide it when he saw Anna watching. Without thinking, Anna approached him. She wasn't sure what she was hoping for, but she felt an overwhelming urge to confront him. "Who are you texting?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake looked up at her, his face instantly betraying a flicker of panic. The moment passed quickly. Jake shifted, trying to shield his phone from her view. "Just work," he mumbled, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But Anna had seen enough. She knew the truth now. She had seen the way his eyes darted, the way his smile faltered. It was him. He was lying. It felt like a punch to the gut, the realization that the man she had been married to for so long was no longer the person she thought he was. Anna stood there, frozen, as Jake continued to move around the house, unaware of the storm inside her. She wanted to scream, to demand the truth from him right then and there, but something held her back. Maybe it was the exhaustion of the whole ordeal, or perhaps she simply wasn't ready for the confrontation she knew would change everything. That night, Anna went to bed with her thoughts in turmoil. She wasn't sure how much more she could take. The lies had been building for so long, and now they had all come crashing down. She couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to face the reality of the situation. Jake had been unfaithful, and no matter how much she wanted to pretend everything was fine, the truth was inescapable. The question was no longer whether Jake had cheated. It was how she would confront him, and what would happen next. The next few days felt like a blur for Anna, a mix of anticipation and dread. She couldn't shake the feeling that her entire life had shifted beneath her feet. The man she had spent years with, who had been the father of her children and the person she trusted above all others, had betrayed her. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the deceit, the fact that Jake had been living a double life, one that she had no idea existed. Anna was torn between wanting to confront Jake immediately and needing time to gather herself, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that waiting wasn't an option. She had already uncovered too much. The evidence was right there. His phone, the messages, the late nights, and the distance that had grown between them. Everything pointed to one undeniable truth. Jake was having an affair, and it wasn't just any affair. It was with Emily, someone Anna had trusted, someone who had been in their home, someone who had played the role of a helpful friend. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of agonizing over the decision, Anna couldn't wait any longer. Jake had been acting distant again, leaving early for work and returning late, offering the same hollow explanations he had given in the past. That night, as he came home late once again, Anna knew the moment had arrived. She couldn't keep pretending. She had to confront him, to face the truth head-on. When Jake walked through the door, Anna was already waiting for him. The tension in the room was palpable, thick with the weight of unspoken words. Jake looked surprised to see her standing there, but he didn't seem overly concerned. Maybe he thought she wouldn't say anything, that she would let it slide like she had done in the past. But tonight was different. Tonight, Anna wasn't going to remain silent. "Who's Emily?" she asked, her voice calm but steely, betraying none of the turmoil inside her. Jake froze, the color draining from his face. For a moment there was only silence, as though time had stopped. His eyes darted around the room, and Anna could see the panic flicker in them. He wasn't ready for this, but she knew it was time to force the truth into the light. "What are you talking about?" Jake stammered, his usual calm demeanor now replaced by uncertainty. "Don't lie to me, Jake," Anna said, her voice now firm. "I know about the messages, the late-night calls, the weekends away. I know everything." Jake's face turned red, and he took a step back, running a hand through his hair, clearly trying to find the right words. But there were no words that could fix this. The facade was gone. Anna had seen the proof with her own eyes. The affair was real, and Jake was caught. After a long pause, Jake let out a heavy sigh. "Anna, I didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't supposed to get this far." Anna's chest tightened, and she felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. "You didn't mean for it to get this far? What does that even mean?" Her voice was shaking now, though she tried to maintain control. "You've been seeing her behind my back for months, and you didn't mean for it to happen. You've been lying to me for so long, Jake. How could you?" Jake's face softened with a look of guilt, but Anna wasn't sure if it was genuine or if he was simply trying to salvage whatever he could. He stepped closer, but Anna held up a hand, stopping him. She wasn't ready to hear his excuses, not anymore. She had heard enough. She had spent days searching for the truth, digging through his lies, and now it was all laid bare. "I don't want to hear it," Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. "You betrayed me. You betrayed our family." The words felt like they were ripping her apart, but she forced them out. "I don't even know who you are anymore." Jake stood there silent, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He knew there was no way out, no more excuses. The truth was now undeniable. But it didn't change anything. Anna's heart was broken, shattered by the man she had loved, the man she had trusted. There was no going back. For the first time in years, Anna felt a surge of anger, of betrayal so deep she could hardly breathe. She wanted to scream, to lash out, to make him feel the pain she was feeling. But instead, she stood there, composed, holding back the flood of emotions that threatened to consume her. The worst part was that she had known, deep down, that something wasn't right. But now, the truth was too much to bear. Anna turned away, her back to Jake, as the silence between them grew unbearable. She didn't know what the future held, or if there even was a future for them. All she knew was that everything had changed, and she couldn't undo the damage that had been done. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a surreal fog, as though Anna were moving through life in a haze, unable to fully grasp the weight of what had just happened. Jake had apologized profusely, tried to explain himself, and even begged for her forgiveness, but Anna wasn't sure she could ever forgive him. The betrayal was too deep, too ingrained in the foundation of their marriage. The man she had shared her life with for years, the man she had trusted above all others, had shattered everything. Jake tried to act like nothing had changed, but Anna could feel the distance between them growing. The once familiar rhythm of their daily life now felt foreign and tense. Every time Jake spoke, every time he tried to touch her, Anna recoiled. She didn't trust him anymore. The warmth that had once been present in their relationship had been replaced by a cold, insurmountable gap, and Anna couldn't escape the thought of her. The woman who had been so friendly, so warm, so helpful, was now the face of Jake's betrayal. For a while, Anna tried to hold it all together, to pretend for the sake of their children. But every moment was filled with questions. How long had this affair really been going on? What did it mean for their future? Was there even a future left for them? Jake had promised he would end things with Emily, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the damage was already done. The trust was gone, and she didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. One evening, Anna sat alone in the living room, staring at the quiet space around her. The house that had once felt like a safe haven now felt hollow, like the walls were closing in on her. She had never felt more alone. Her mind kept returning to the same question. Should she stay and try to fix things, or was it time to move on? The thought of starting over, of rebuilding her life without Jake, was both terrifying and liberating. But the thought of staying, of enduring more lies and heartache, seemed impossible. Anna had always prided herself on being strong, on being able to handle whatever life threw at her, but this was different. The weight of the betrayal pressed down on her like a heavy stone. It was hard to look at Jake without seeing the lies in his eyes, without remembering how easily he had deceived her. Every apology, every promise to do better, felt hollow. He could say all the right things, but nothing would ever change the fact that he had broken her heart. As the days turned into weeks, Anna found herself withdrawing from everything. her friends, her family, even her own children. She loved them, of course, but the emotional exhaustion was too much. She wasn't sure how to move forward, how to navigate the pain that seemed to consume every part of her. She spent countless nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had made the right choice to confront Jake. Could she have handled it differently? Could she have saved their marriage? One afternoon, after another tense, quiet dinner, Anna found herself alone in the kitchen preparing the dishes. Jake was in the other room, scrolling through his phone as he always did after dinner. He had grown more distant as time passed, no longer making the effort to fix what had been broken. Anna felt a pang of sadness as she realized that the man she once knew, the man she had loved, was slipping further and further away. That night, as they sat in their respective corners of the house, Anna made a decision. She couldn't keep living in limbo, torn between the past and the present, between the woman who had been betrayed and the woman who had once believed in her marriage. The decision wasn't easy, but it was clear. She couldn't stay. She couldn't continue to live a life based on broken promises and shattered trust. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Anna told Jake that she needed space. She couldn't be in the same house anymore, not with the way things were. Jake didn't argue. He didn't fight it. He knew deep down that their marriage had reached its breaking point. The silence that followed felt deafening, like an unspoken acknowledgement that things could never go back to the way they were. As Anna walked out of the house that morning, she felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she had to start over. She had to find herself again, outside of the life she had built with Jake. She wasn't sure where the road would take her, but one thing was clear: she was done waiting for things to change. She was finally ready to let go. The months that followed Anna's decision to leave Jake were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges. It wasn't easy to rebuild her life from the ground up. The home she had once shared with Jake now felt like a distant memory, filled with echoes of a life she no longer recognized. But as time passed, Anna found herself gradually becoming stronger. She rediscovered pieces of herself that had been buried under the weight of the marriage and the betrayal. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but she started to accept it, to let it shape her into someone more resilient. At first, Anna focused on her children, making sure they were adjusting to the new arrangement. She knew it was important for them to see that despite the upheaval, their lives could still have stability and love. She didn't want them to grow up with the same feelings of distrust and confusion that had overtaken her own life. She kept the lines of communication open with them, ensuring they felt heard and safe. It wasn't easy, but seeing the smiles on their faces reminded her why she had made this decision in the first place. Jake, on the other hand, seemed to have fallen into a spiral of his own. He tried to win Anna back, sending her flowers, writing letters, and even showing up at her door in an attempt to apologize and make amends. But for Anna, it was too late.